Man, I've had so many people talk to me about moving to Chesapeake from other parts of the country, the world. What I realize is that as Chesapeake has changed, it has really required me to get more of an in-depth description of what is in Chesapeake in 2025 moving forward. And so in this video, I'm talking about everything Chesapeake, the in-depth ultimate guide that you need to relocating to Chesapeake and where to live when you want to move to Chesapeake. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the entire city, go all the way around from every part, every price range, every part of town that feels different. And you can hear from me, my perspective as to what I think, where are the best places to move to. And if you had different preferences, different types of houses, areas, shopping, all sorts of things, everything that you need to know about moving to Chesapeake and where to live when you're planning to take a move to Chesapeake. As we go through Chesapeake, I'm going to talk to you about some restaurants that I love, because I do think that if you plan to live in Chesapeake, you got to get some really good starts as to the best places to eat. So if you can just feel a little bit more at home and go have some like go-to places. So just make sure you can pause, you can rewind, take notes. This video is designed for you to have an in-depth overview of each part of Chesapeake. So what we're going to do is we're going to look on the map. I'm going to show you on the map where Chesapeake is. An overview of Chesapeake also includes an overview of the Hampton Roads area. So you see Chesapeake right here. It's a big city. It's a huge land size city. And about 250,000 people also, but it's a much bigger land size than you'd think 250,000 people would hold. If you zoom out, the Hampton Roads area consists of Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Chesapeake, Suffolk, Portsmouth, Newport News, Hampton, Williamsburg, York County, James City County. This whole area here is the Hampton Roads area. But zooming in, Chesapeake is one of the most popular and largest cities in the area. But we're going to talk about where you want to move and live in Chesapeake, depending on where you want to be in the city. So then the first thing to note is you want to know where the interstates are located. Number one is going to be the Interstate 64 area. 64 goes in like a horseshoe. This is Interstate 64 right here, and it goes all up and around. Now, 64 turns into different roads. 64, you see it kind of goes in the horseshoe right there. It's 64 east and west. 64 east goes down like this. Like, well, that's weird. Why does it go that way? That's just what they do. It doesn't really go east very much, right? 64 west goes the other way. It backtracks, goes the other way, okay? But then you have Interstate 264. It runs like a belt across the area. So Chesapeake connects to 264 in two different places. Now, you've got Interstate 464, which connects from Chesapeake all the way up to downtown Norfolk. Then you've got Interstate 664, which connects in Chesapeake all the way through Suffolk up to the north side, Newport News and Hampton. So it basically all runs in a big circle or even like a horseshoe, and then the belt that goes across is 264. Now, if you're in Chesapeake, the main ones you're going to be remembering are 64 and 664, 464, and 264. The most important ones of those are 64 and even a side one, which is Route 168, which is the bypass, which connects all the way down to the south part of Chesapeake, which is a lifesaver if you're down there. Now, the first place I want to focus on to talk about is an area called South Norfolk, which is not actually Norfolk, it's Chesapeake. It's just called South Norfolk because originally this area was part of the Norfolk County area decades ago. So we're going to start in the north central section of Chesapeake. You see this little kind of bar that sticks out of the top of Chesapeake, the little crown? This area is called, part of it's called Central Chesapeake, but it really is also called South Norfolk, and part of it, and you think, well, why is it called South Norfolk? It's Chesapeake. I understand. It's from decades past. It was part of the southern part of Norfolk County, but now it's become Chesapeake, and it's still considered South Norfolk. That's the if you look on here, the historic side of Chesapeake right here. This is all, you talk old houses, 1920s, 1930s. The classic style houses that you would expect maybe even in Ghent or Norfolk. Those old houses, big porches, old houses, some basements even in South Norfolk and Chesapeake, and so. These houses, because of where they are, there's not a whole lot around here, except for you'll find some random restaurants. Not a lot of them that I really frequent that much. There's a couple of Mexican restaurants and places nearby that are bad, but really for the most part, you're going to find yourself driving away from South Norfolk to get to the rest of the area to get to more stuff. For example, towards Greenbrier, towards even Virginia Beach for that matter, even suburbs in Chesapeake that are further away from South Norfolk. You're not really going to be doing too much in South Norfolk except for living. Generally speaking, if you leave South Norfolk, but you're in the same central Chesapeake area, the rest of this area is kind of a mixture. You've got a lot of Cape Cod style houses, 30s, 40s, 50s style houses, but not a whole lot of other stuff going on. Same kind of thing like with South Norfolk, but newer houses, and it feels a little bit more renovated, a little bit newer type of area. But when I say newer, I don't mean brand new. These are still like 50s and 60s style like strip malls. It still feels really old, which can bring down the demand. This doesn't feel as nice as other parts of Chesapeake. And when you hear about Chesapeake, you often hear about the newness, the suburbs, the shopping, the vibe that's in Chesapeake. It's just different in this part of Chesapeake. It just feels older. It actually feels to me a lot like Norfolk, which is not really a problem. It's just totally different. Now, the benefit to this area is that it is a lot cheaper. So you'll find houses in here anywhere from the 200s, 300s, and sometimes even 400s, but the new construction houses, $400,000. That is uncommon and almost unheard of anywhere else in Hampton Roads. So if you look at even one of the most popular neighborhoods in this kind of the central Chesapeake area is Norfolk Highlands, which again, it's not Norfolk, it's Chesapeake, but a lot of different parts of Norfolk Highlands in here, a lot of kind of those long grid style streets, a lot of, if you want like an extra little piece of land, Norfolk Highlands allows for that in this whole section here, as well as going across the road of Military Highway right here. These are two different parts of Norfolk Highlands that I think if you want just straight best house bang for buck, I would consider Norfolk Highlands. You just don't get a whole lot more than that. You have to drive several minutes to get to the most accessible, shopping, grocery stores about 8 to 10 minutes away. But the strip malls nearby aren't really even that upscale either. If you look at Military Highway, this is what you see. You see some kind of industrial in some parts. You see these old kind of car body shops, auto sales, used car lots, those types of things. And this is kind of around where you find Norfolk Highlands. So it's not here. You're not going into Norfolk Highlands or anywhere around the kind of the South Norfolk or even the central Chesapeake area because of the aesthetics. You're coming here because of the affordability of the houses. And considering the fact that because of where you are in the Chesapeake area, you can get to Norfolk in like 10, 12 minutes. You can get to Virginia Beach in, literally 5 minutes, and you're right on the border. But you can get to the middle of Virginia Beach in like 15 or 20. The actual beach in 15 or 20 or 25. So this is pretty convenient to a lot of places, but when you're in the area, it just doesn't feel that sophisticated. It doesn't feel that elaborate. So you kind of have to know that going in. Now, the one restaurant I like in this area over all of them is going to be Wickers, which is right off of Indian River Road. I think that even as you go further north here, there's some real nice neighborhoods right next to it. For example, Seminole Park. As you go further north along the water, this is some of the cheapest new waterfront anywhere, like $800,000 for something you might pay $300,000 or $400,000 more for somewhere else. So it's real nice nooks back in these corners. I guess for the price, I think you can do well, but Wickers is my favorite restaurant in this part of Chesapeake. Now, drawback is going to be also just there aren't too many grocery stores nearby. The immediate shopping, there's just not a whole lot here. So you'll find yourself driving towards Greenbrier, which is a pretty popular area for a lot of people. But now if you drift down south, headed towards Greenbrier, you're not too far away from Greenbrier either, which is a benefit to being in this area too. But Greenbrier itself is where you start finding newer types of houses. Now, when I say newer, Greenbrier really popped off in the 80s and the 90s. This was like the prime place to go to, even outside of Chesapeake in Virginia Beach. This is a place to go to for shopping for a long time. Greenbrier Mall was like the class of Chesapeake right here. This mall was awesome. I loved going here in the 90s and even the early 2000s. Christmas time was the best. I loved going to Greenbrier Mall, and everybody did. It was packed. Of course, malls now have since gone by the wayside. It's still there, but it's not nearly what it used to be. But even around Greenbrier Mall, the rest of Greenbrier has been and it still is pretty active. It's awesome. And so Target, the big box stores, the Best Buys, the Harris Teeter, Barnes & Noble, all around through Volvo Parkway and Greenbrier Mall or Greenbrier Parkway. This whole area in Greenbrier is like the hub of Chesapeake shopping and also parts of Virginia Beach shopping. You can get to this part of Chesapeake very, very easily. There are some neighborhoods close by. For example, Bayberry Forest, even Mill Lake Quarter townhouses. There's so even Greenbrier, the neighborhood itself is all through the area right behind the mall. Logan's Mill is behind here also. So these are going to be 300s and 400s, but if you're in Greenbrier, in the area of Greenbrier, you could be spending 350, 450, even on the water, fives or so. But as you come off of there, off of Volvo, then you'll find some areas like, for example, Emerald Forest, which is right next to Greenbrier Country Club, which is a really nice golf course if you love golf. But these are starting in like the 7s, 8s, and 9s. So there's some real nice neighborhoods around Greenbrier. You can tell that they designed the area for a little bit more of a more upscale type of living, but you don't have to have a ton of affordability to get in Greenbrier. But that being said, for what is here, really nice areas. Now drifting south of there, even if you're away from Greenbrier, the focus, the kind of the idea of being in Chesapeake, the closer you are to Greenbrier, the more convenient you are to grocery stores, shops, restaurants, big box stores. You're closer to that, which makes your area more desirable. So as you drift away from Greenbrier, there are other parts that have shops and things to do, but Greenbrier is still kind of that gravitational pull that if you are close to there, it is always ideal. So you'll find some, like Chesapeake City Park is close to there, a huge park, an awesome park that has some nice, holiday functions, things like that. And also a good YMCA nearby. Chesapeake Arboretum, some other spots, some outdoor things to do. Oak Grove Lake Park, which is a real nice place to run around the lake. So some outdoor stuff in and around Greenbrier. But the idea here is, again, not just the Greenbrier area, the Greenbrier mall area, but as you go away from there, you see Volvo Parkway here. This is where you can get into the newer part of Greenbrier. So you've got Summit Point, which is in the central between Greenbrier Parkway and Battlefield Boulevard. This is like the town center. If you look at Virginia Beach's town center, this is the town center of Chesapeake, which used to be where Dollar Tree had its headquarters. It still is there, and they built a new headquarters there. Right next to that is all this new stuff, apartments. You can walk to a brewery, coffee shop, restaurants, more restaurants on the corners. Real nice part of the new Greenbrier is kind of what I like to call it too. It's not really the same feel as what you see in the rest of Greenbrier, but it's kind of more of an extension of it with shopping. That also, including with that, is the other side of Greenbrier, which is Greenbrier West, Greenbrier East, which is where Greenbrier Mall is, and Greenbrier West. Greenbrier West has Sam's Club, more big box, Walmart, restaurants, all up and down Battlefield Boulevard. Now, I'm going to mention more about Battlefield Boulevard and further south in a minute. This whole area around Greenbrier, this again is an extension of the Greenbrier Mall area, which again, if you're living close to Chesapeake, in the Chesapeake area, you know where Greenbrier is because that's where so much stuff is. Restaurants in the Greenbrier area I like, one of which is Luce Secondo, which is a Italian restaurant, a new one that they have also a location at the beach. That's in Summit Point, but also going away from there is Taqueria La Hacienda, which is off Military Highway, a real small hole in the wall, great hole in the wall Mexican restaurant right off of here. See here, Military Highway right here. That's I think some of the most authentic Mexican food I've had in the area. I love it a lot. But even close to Greenbrier, going further east away from Greenbrier, but over towards right at the line of Chesapeake and Virginia Beach, some real nice neighborhoods for like the 350, 450, 475 price range. Huntington Woods, which is right here, as well as Norcova Estates, which is right here. I love Norcova Estates for the price. 400, 375, 450, anywhere in this range. There's brick ranches built in the 60s. I do like this type of area because it's very functional. There are lots of very nice size, but also you're close to Greenbrier, but you're not spending a whole lot of money for what you're getting. I just love the value you get in this part of Chesapeake, close to Greenbrier. Anywhere near there, Kemp Woods. Love Kemp Woods. It's a great neighborhood back in the corner, 575 to like 800. This whole big area back here, great wooded trees. Love this neighborhood a lot. This is one of the neighborhoods that I grew up spending a lot of time in the late 90s, early 2000s. Love Kemp Woods a lot. So anything going down Kempsville, going away from Greenbrier, going away from Kempsville down the south part, this area here, you're starting to see it feel a little bit newer. So coming from here, Kempsville, connecting towards Greenbrier this way, you'll find more strip malls, a few more neighborhoods that are like in the 5s, in 6s range. But then as you connect from Kempsville going down to this part of Battlefield Boulevard right here, this is where you start kind of feeling like I'm getting into the country part of town. So as you leave Greenbrier West, where Battlefield Boulevard and Sam's Club are, going further south from here, you'll start seeing a lot of countryside. Like, okay, this is where the 2-lane road was. They just got opened to 4 lanes and 6 lanes. You can just see where that growth happened. Same goes in this side of Kempsville also. So this whole corridor, as you go Kempsville Road to Battlefield Boulevard, all kind of converges to a point to where you're like, okay, this is was suburbs, And now it feels like I'm in a countryside, a mix of that and suburbs. The landscape starts changing a little bit. And so as you go further down south, going over down into the Battlefield Boulevard, South Battlefield Boulevard area, and over towards the south part near Butt Station, this is where you will start seeing a lot more land. Not land necessarily to build a lot of houses on, but as you're in Butt Station, going on Butt Station Road near Elbow Road, there are some really nice newer neighborhoods around here. So if you want newer but not brand new, going off Butt Station, plenty of great neighborhoods near here. One of the ones I think is one of my favorites is Greystone, which is right here. This is Greystone. You're talking 7s, 8s, 9s in some cases, mostly 7s and 8s, brick style houses, big 2-story, 3,000 plus square feet. You'll find some nice older trees in here, which I do like a lot. So for the price, I like the location. And I'd say if you want price bang for buck house for location, all things considered, the area from Kempsville Road, and I'll just draw a line here, where Kempsville Road and Butt Station, this area here, towards Centerville and over around Clearfield, this whole area here, including the area where Greystone is, this area I think for the price I'm a big fan of because you do get a little bit cheaper house for the money. You get newer style houses, which means a little bit more contemporary, a little bit more functional for this current time living. You know, that's the way people live nowadays, bigger closets, bigger floor plan or more open floor plans. But you also get close access to Greenbrier, close access to Virginia Beach, which is the back way here, Elbow Road. You can go that way, but also up towards the central part of Virginia Beach as well. So this was an area that we considered moving to because of all things considered. Best bang for buck, I think, is right around here. If you want that type of bigger house, but also, you know, access to lots of things, but not be paying for the central spot. I like that a lot. Now, so if you like this video, hit that like button. It really helps me a lot. And also, if you plan to relocate to the area, I'll get way more into detail about any parts of the area you want to get more into. This is what I love talking about, and I love helping people relocate to the area. So just reach out at any point. I have my contact information in the description. So moving back over into the south part of Chesapeake, you start seeing a lot of green down here, right? So there are two different offshoots of this part of Chesapeake I want to mention. First is going to be as you drift down south on Battlefield Boulevard going further south. So anywhere kind of as you cross past Oak Grove Road right here, even towards the bypass, which is Route 168 here, the bypass is very helpful. But as you go down south of here, this is Battlefield Boulevard South. This area, this whole area further here, this is where like is almost the gateway to the country of Chesapeake. So as you go further south, this is a bridge, the Great Bridge right here near that Taco Bell. This opens every hour. Super annoying. So if you do live south of here, this bridge is going to make it be a big factor as far as commute goes. But as soon as you go further south from here, you're going to find, of course, you've got City Hall. You've got further down south, Johnstown Road, Mount Pleasant Road, all these roads here going towards Cedar Road. These are the main roads that go connect to the rest of the south part of Chesapeake. This is all country, meaning not country like rural, just rural, but back before the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of nothing. Like you find Battlefield Boulevard was a main road, but after that, there wasn't a whole lot. Johnstown Road, like all these main roads, not a lot of different neighborhoods. But once you got into the 80s, this area exploded. As you go off Butt Station Road down Centerville Turnpike, going down, this is a long road. This goes all the way up into Virginia Beach. So going down south, though, you'll see there's a Chesapeake Bridge. It goes across the Intercoastal Waterway. The Centerville Turnpike Bridge, this opens regularly also, which is also super annoying because, again, if you come through here down to the south part or through the other side, which we'll mention here in a minute on the Battlefield Boulevard side, once you cross over the Intercoastal Waterway, you're in the south part of Chesapeake, but the annoyance factor goes up a lot because of these bridges. We'll talk about going around there in a minute, but my point here is that it is going to be annoying if you live near these bridges and have to go across them regularly. But as you cross across the Centerville Turnpike Bridge, you will know you are now in country. Now you'll be back in suburbs real fast, but it just feels like a different part of suburbs. It's a country suburb as opposed to a suburban type of thick suburb. So as you go down Centerville, this whole area here, near Mount Pleasant Road, all through Etheridge Manor, this whole section here is neighborhoods. Built in the some in the 60s, some in the 70s, but a lot of these, the bigger, like the newer ones around Etheridge Manor, Etheridge Lakes, a bunch of Etheridge neighborhoods all through here that are going to be in the 4s, 5s, and 6s. But this is where a lot of the houses were built in the 90s, late 80s into the 90s. And so you'll find like the development line between Albemarle Acres, which was more in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. You find that going all the way down Etheridge Manor. So if you do want those newer contemporary style houses, you might want to spend $5 to $650, but you want like the school district checks a big box, Hickory, for example. You might be looking in a place like Etheridge Manor, in a place like Albemarle Acres, in a place like off Centerville Turnpike and Johnstown Road. So this area is where you start finding the houses. You find a lot more houses. You'll find a mixture of styles of houses, but you'll find houses. See Battlefield Golf Club. That's a good, Battlefield Golf Club is a nice golf course. It's fun, but not a lot of things to do necessarily. You feel like you're in a country town with a bunch of houses. You'll find some grocery stores close by Albemarle Acres. There's a Kroger across the street right there across on Mount Pleasant that I go to relatively frequently. But anything around here, you're going to be finding a lot of houses, not much else. But that's one of the classic feels of South Chesapeake. So as you go further down south in Chesapeake, it feels like you're far away from stuff. So Butt Station near Fentress Airfield, which has a lot of jet noise, by the way. Oceana Naval Air Station in Virginia Beach is not the only place with jet noise. Fentress is the other one. Watch out for that area, especially if you live near there. But anything close to Centerville Turnpike near Fentress, close to Etheridge Manor, you're going to be finding a lot of houses and not much else. So the further south you go, you'll find more opportunities to build new construction, custom houses, 6, 7, 8, $1 million and up, bigger houses. So you'll find like, I'm going to drop a pin, even like I'm going to throw a street, Head of River Road. Great example of just a random country road, farmland. There you go. And if you keep going, see, there's a house right over there. Classic example of what you'll find in Chesapeake is just a random house built in 60s or 80s or whatever, and a bunch of cornfields. And you got another house over here, and you'll find someone else that may have built a house, quarter of a mile away. And then you'll find randomly some houses that were just all in a row because there are some spots where builders have been able to buy from farmers and developed a bunch of houses. For example, off Cedarville Road, Sanderson Estates is a good example of what I'm talking about here. Here's one house. There's another one right there. You'll find Sanderson Estates has a lot of 3-acre lots. And so there are a couple of spots that have this type of new construction. So you see the lots here. This is a good example. This is an older one. Of course, this is an old example, but the same type of thing is still happening now in and around Cedarville and Sanderson Estates and other parts in this area around here. So there are a couple of different neighborhoods that are built in around Johnstown Road, Battlefield Boulevard, this type of thing. Off the main road, just a cutoff, 60, 70 houses that are in the middle of a bunch of other farmland. Now, keep in mind that when you buy a house like that, a new house, that's $675, $800, $1 million in these areas, a Hickory School District, Great Bridge School District, or Grassfield, you'll find that there are places nearby that might also be developed as well. So remember, keep in mind that when you have the chance of development near you, make sure you, if you can, figure out what's near you, what might be happening near you. There's some speculation that might be happening there, which could be beneficial for the growth of the area and the appreciation, but doesn't always mean that. I was talking to someone just recently about the concept of redistricting. When you start getting changing or adding more people to these southern parts of Chesapeake, you might run the risk of a redistricting happening. This happened already in Great Bridge, and then when they started the Grassfield and Hickory school districts, Great Bridge was a lot bigger. It was the original of these three, Great Bridge, Grassfield, and Hickory. Great Bridge was the only one that was around back in the mid-90s. Then came Hickory. Then came Grassfield right after that. And so then the redistricting started. So when you buy a house in these areas, make sure you know how the chances, if you can, of the redistricting possibilities of those areas, if that matters to you. Anything from Butt Station, Fentress, near like Etheridge Manor, really from here down, you're going to find a bunch of rural areas. I mean, it doesn't even matter where I drop a pin. You're going to find the same type of thing for the most part. A bunch of acreage, a bunch of property, and a lot of farmland. So people think, okay, well, I can buy in Chesapeake with the anticipation of increased appreciation because of the development that's happening in Chesapeake, because there is growth in Chesapeake and new things happening there. But the problem is that it's taking a long time. There's so much land. It's not growing that fast, but it is growing. So you start seeing the growth. But like, for example, Edinburgh is an area that I think is of anywhere in the South Chesapeake area is, I'd say it's the newest. And also you find some really more like higher price, like in the $1 million range houses, like Edinburgh, the actual neighborhood, which is where this area is right here. These are going to be like, $850, $950, 1.1, 1.2, some on the lakes. So really nice neighborhood back here. But then you've got a couple like, so for example, Hickory Manor, Hickory Landing, which is over here, newer construction over right off of Edinburgh Parkway. These are going to be more like in the 6s and 7s. But they're like, see here, small lots, and they're condo style, which means you don't really own the land itself as much as it is the actual house itself. So you see a different vibe here, but the Hickory School District is what makes this so in demand. And again, this whole area here is in Hickory or Great Bridge, and as you go further to Grassfield, which we'll mention. So the school districts in the south part of Chesapeake are almost unmatched anywhere in the area, aside from parts of Virginia Beach, which are very comparable. As you find in the south part, a lot of individual neighborhoods that have larger lots, 1 acre, 2 acres, and 3 acres. But they are kind of sparse. You kind of find them tucked away in the corners. I did a video about specifically these types of neighborhoods in a different video, and you can watch that to go into more depth about these specific neighborhoods. But there are a lot of them like in the 6s to 9s in the $1 million price range. One of the drawbacks too, as you go further down south, is the well and septic systems as opposed to city water and sewer. Now, if that doesn't bother you, if you're used to this in a different part of the country, that's fine. Now, it's not a huge deal. It's just different lifestyle. You have to eventually replace your well and septic systems, mainly the septic systems, pump them regularly. They might last 20 years, but they might cost $20,000 to $30,000 to replace. But you do it once every 20, 30 years. Usually is okay, but it's something to keep in mind and something that's ongoing maintenance for you. So it's not the same type of vibe as you would be in a city water and sewer type of area as you go further north, which is most Chesapeake is. But as you go into the rural parts, that's a lot of this area as well and septic. So if you're down here, your essentials, you're going to be driving a ways. You're going to be driving 20 to 30 minutes away to get to Greenbrier or to Virginia Beach. And otherwise, you're going to be talking about Edinburgh a lot, and there's not a whole lot there. It's new and it's nice. You got a Walmart, you've got some shopping, Home Depot, and all that, but it's just not prominent. It's not a bunch. But I do think until more is coming to this area, you'll be finding a lot of driving to the rest of town, which is why it feels so far away. And one of the reasons why a lot of people stray away from this area is just the drive. Love the space, love the house styles, newer style houses. But it's just, for $700,000, $800,000 to $1 million, you find that it's kind of worth going closer to the middle of Chesapeake if you don't care about the land size, because that's really the benefit to that area. Otherwise, you're like, what's the point? Now, if you're in South Chesapeake, now some of my favorite neighborhoods also in South Chesapeake, I'm going to use a couple examples. I love Cheshire Forest for $650, $750, $800, real nice houses. Older trees. It has an HOA with a pool, which is uncommon for this type of neighborhood. But I love this style of house. And for the 6s to 7s and 750 range, I love it a lot. Now, next to that is another one called Forest Lakes. I also like this one a lot. Zooming in here, for 650 to 750 or so, maybe even again 850 brick. The big ones are going to be in the 750 to 8 range, but again, back to the trees. I love the trees in some of these neighborhoods, the older trees. I love this feel back here. So you'll find that some of these neighborhoods in the 90s and 2000s were built further back away from like Parker Road back here. And so you'll find a lot of houses in here, like in the 6s, 7s, and 8s. Some of my favorite parts of Great Bridge, Hickory, Grassfield are all through the south part of Johnstown Road, south of Cedar Road, all through here. And it just kind of blends together. And going up here, I love Wilson Heights for $450, $525. This whole area around here, the 60s ranch style houses, but the location is prime. I love being in this part of town. It just feels like kind of more of a small town vibe. Big lots, it has that. If you're close to Battlefield, in this part of Battlefield, you can tell this is kind of like where the South Chesapeake area kind of originated. And so you'll see kind of like that's like central Chesapeake, and it was like the hub, right? And it wasn't. It was the hub, but they never thought it was going to be big enough to really expand. And so it's kind of always backed up around here. This is close to where City Hall is. So City Hall is like a few blocks away from this section right here. So all the municipal buildings all through here. I love being all in this area. They have a local parade for the holidays. It's great. If you love the small town feel, anything around Cedar Road, Mount Pleasant, Johnstown, This is where it's at, Battlefield Boulevard. It's really nice around here, and it feels like South Chesapeake. When someone says they live in Great Bridge or Hickory, this is what people often think about, is this area right around here. So a majority of the suburbs of Chesapeake are going to be anywhere from the 450 range to the 650 range, but you'll find those bigger houses, 3,000, 3,200 square feet and up, are going to be 650 and up to 8, 9, $1 million. And so if you do want these areas, keep in mind that one of the reasons why these are in demand is because of the school districts. Grassfield, Hickory, and Great Bridge. Hickory and Great Bridge primarily on this side, especially Hickory, going close over to the western side away from the bypass. Now, if you live in Chesapeake and you want to go to Virginia Beach, there is a connection that connects over towards Fentress. I mentioned this whole area, Land of Promise, going further down south before, but Fentress Airfield, this airstrip is right near the Mount Pleasant Road area, which eventually connects up to Indian River Road. The reason this matters is because this is one of the main roads that connects to the rest of the south part of Virginia Beach without going along the main, like those longer, busier roads of the interstates, or just even through the other parts of town. You can connect through any Mount Pleasant Road all the way up, and it saves you some time. Now, the drawback to this whole area is that you're driving down 2-lane roads, and I'll show you what I mean. 2-lane roads with ditches on both sides, and it doesn't even matter where. You'll see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. So you'll find the ditches, and it's more of a kind of frustrating as you drive in the middle of the night, or you see there's not much light around here. So that's something to note. But if you do live in this area, it's very helpful to use Mount Pleasant and Fentress to get up to Virginia Beach and save some time. A great neighborhood off of Mount Pleasant is Ravenna. These are going to be in the $675, $775 price range. That brick, that kind of that classic late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s style house you'll find at a lot of places in Chesapeake. It's a real nice spot for the price. Now, if you get closer, even in the round of Ravenna and closer to Albemarle Acres, you will hear jet noise. And I think that is one thing that is overlooked in Chesapeake that people think they're going to Chesapeake to avoid, is jet noise. It still can happen on the eastern side of Chesapeake, especially. So definitely check your ACU's jet noise zone maps in Chesapeake, even just in case the neighborhood you want may have some. And so it's not going to be as prominent nearly as much as Oceana over in Virginia Beach, but it's at least worth noting. So before we go further into the south part of Chesapeake, I want to mention one main road, which is the primary road that is important to keep in mind for a lot of the activity going up and down from the south part of Chesapeake, which is Route 168 right here. This road right here. This is the one that if you are going to be living in the south part of Chesapeake at all, it will feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. The bypass is what makes it feel closer. So you can be living, like, for example, off of the bypass, but maybe over off Benefit or near Battlefield Boulevard, Johnstown Road over here. You could be living here, but if you're close to the bypass, you might initially think you're really far from Greenbrier, like 20, 30 minutes, or far away from Virginia Beach, town center, the beach. But once you hit this bypass, so for example, if you're in Johnstown Road, like let's say one of my favorite areas, for example, is Cheshire Forest neighborhood right here next to Parker Road, or even Forest Lakes, which is just past that. Anywhere around here. I love this whole area near Great Bridge, Wilson Heights over here, over closer to Cedar Road. And if you're over here, you're like, well, what am I going to do? I need to get to, Greenbrier quickly, or even going towards Virginia Beach quickly. You don't want to go across the bridge here. Take the bypass. You're right here. Bump up here. You're maybe 8 minutes away to Greenbrier. You're more like maybe 20 minutes away to Virginia Beach Town Center of Virginia Beach. It's not that far from this part of Chesapeake. Even going further south, if you're down closer to Hickory, South Hickory, down towards way down here now near Indian Creek, you only might be about 28 to 32 minutes away to the center of Virginia Beach, because getting to the bypass, using the bypass, is the most convenient thing ever. It's all still about the feeling. If you don't want to feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, I would not choose going further down south in Chesapeake. Another reason is because when you go down that far south, people think you're that far south, and locals feel like you're on a different world almost. So going to your house, people coming to your house to visit, it is a lot harder for people to be willing to do that because it feels like more of an effort to do it. Now, going further west from there, you've got the same kind of thing, like that countryside. George Washington Highway is another road like the bypass, but not as easy to use, but it's a long road that connects back up to the same part of town. But if my point here is that if you're in the south part, like near Route 17, going further north, now you're into the Grassfield Great Bridge mixture area of Grassfield High School District. So you're talking same kind of thing, lots of strip malls, newer subdivisions in like near Cedar Road, like for example, Las Gaviotas is a great one right next to Cedar Road. I love Las Gaviotas, which kind of feels like the bunch of areas like near Etheridge Manor. It feels like a lot of the South Chesapeake area. These are classic Chesapeake houses, classic Chesapeake types of areas. So Las Gaviotas is just kind of a very central part of Chesapeake that gets you to other parts of town. And it's, $550, $650 in the Las Gaviotas area. But as you zoom back out, there are more subdivision, more suburb country lines that are being crossed as you go further west, like Moses Grandy Trail and Dominion Boulevard. This area is kind of similar to other parts of South Chesapeake, but you'll find newer construction here too. This is where a lot of the newer houses were built in the 2000s, 2010s, and even current. You'll find like in the last 10, 15 years, a lot of new construction was happening. Now, you'll find that most of Chesapeake is not a huge issue with flooding, but there are some flood issues, concerns as you go into the north part of Cedar Road, like Bell's Mill, the north part of the area here, but also anywhere near the Elizabeth River, like near the Parkview area. See where Parkview here is? Summer Park, this area, some awesome houses, but flood insurance will be almost a definite in this same part of town. So you'll be kind of intrigued, I think, by the styles of houses, but the drawback is just going to be that you might be paying more for that flood insurance. And it's one of the reasons why you might find that the prices of these houses are a little bit cheaper. Like this type of floor plan, this type of elevation, these real nice houses. Moses Grandy, the Cedar Road, a lot of subdivisions back here, they're going to be in the 5s and 6s as well. Same reasons. School district Grassfield is going to be the prominent one as you go further down south here. But you see here Deep Creek. Now, Deep Creek is a school district. You think, okay, well, you said it was Grassfield, so what is it? Well, Deep Creek South is actually Grassfield School District mostly. So anywhere along this side of the finger of the Elizabeth River, this is Grassfield. Further over, though, as you go this direction, this is all Deep Creek. Now, I might get the lines a bit off. You can just do your research on the Chesapeake school zone areas so you can see actually where the actual lines are. But for the most part, this is where I'm talking about. But as you go back into the Grassfield School District area, this is where same price, similar prices as you would find in Great Bridge and Grassfield is because of the demand of the schools. Similar types of houses, similar types of price ranges, 5, 6, 7s mostly. Again, you can always find them in the 8s to $1 million. Some of these, 3,500 and up square foot range, you'll find them at like 700 and up. But a lot of these will start in the 450, 550, 650 price range. And that's what the demand of these school districts are. Now, if you're in the south part of Chesapeake, my favorite burrito place is Burrito Perdido, which is off of Cedar Road, right next to, where's Las Gaviotas? There it is, right there. It's next to in a gas station. So as you can tell, I love holes in the wall. I'm not really a big chains guy. So if you like chains, my recommendations might not be as handy for you. Now, as you go into Deep Creek, you'll find some nicer neighborhoods like Old Mill Run over in the back side here, over towards Elmwood Landing, going into Culpeper Landing, which is a very nice modern area. But the prices are cheaper. And the reason is probably because of demand of area compared to other parts like Grassfield and Hickory and Great Bridge. So Culpeper looks awesome online. You'll see some awesome looking houses, kind of what you consider like similar to what you'd find in like not necessarily the same exact ones as Parkview I mentioned earlier, but the newer, like the big posts, the front porches. It has that nice kind of old school feel, but it's a newer neighborhood. It's nice. Now you'll find that the prices there were going to be, say 5 to 6 mostly. But for this type of house elsewhere, you might be paying, $565 to $675, that kind of thing. You're paying a little bit less to be in this side of Chesapeake. So Deep Creek in general, it just has a totally different feel than you might find the rest of the country part of Hickory, Great Bridge, and Grassfield. Now, the issue with the south part of Chesapeake in general, though, is you see you got the Intercoastal Waterway, right? Well, there are multiple places that the roads cross over. Centerville Turnpike right here. You've got the Chesapeake Expressway, the bypass right here. you got the Battlefield Boulevard right here. You also have Dominion Boulevard right here, the Veterans Bridge. You have also the real super annoying this bridge here. So you have multiple places that roads go across bodies of water. Now, they either have a lot of traffic, a lot of backups, or tolls. You got bridges right here, Turnpike and Battlefield Boulevard. But then you have right here, the Veterans Bridge. This is a toll. So even though you might not be going across the bridge to get up into the north part of the area, you might be paying the toll to get up and back too. So there's going to be some extra money that might be involved if you want to go the quick way, if you live in the Grassfield area or the even Great Bridge area and you want to go this direction. Kind of the overarching issue with being in the south part of Chesapeake is the just getting up to the rest of the parts of town, like north, Virginia Beach and further north, because of these bridges and toll roads. The one that doesn't have a toll is going to be the bypass. So if you can get to the bypass and go up, then you've saved yourself the money and you've also saved yourself the time. The problem though is that again, you only have certain exits. So Mount Pleasant is usually the place, which can be backed up going around Battlefield Boulevard and Johnstown Road. It can be kind of frustrating. So it's still the traffic, but if you can go that way, that's probably the best way to go if I was going to pick any way, if you can. But just keep in mind the traffic dynamic with the toll road is something to keep in mind in the south part of Chesapeake. So as you go into Deep Creek, you'll still see country. So I could drop a pin on Old Mill Road, for example. You'll still see country next to other neighborhoods that bump out. The difference, though, is that as you bump out into the central part of Deep Creek, it feels more industrial. So let's just use, what's a good example? Let's go towards Military Highway. So anywhere up in the north part especially is a good example. So drop a pin on Military Highway. This is Deep Creek, but look at what this feels like different. Like it's just old strip malls, old hotels, like this industrial kind of, almost like you might see when we look talking back in the Norfolk Highlands Military Highway area. This is also Military Highway. This is an extension, the south version of this same road. Remember Military Highway that goes all the way down up towards Norfolk Highlands? Well, Norfolk Highlands is right here. This is Norfolk Highlands. This is just another side of Norfolk Highlands, right? So it's the same type of thing, that same type of vibe in this part of Deep Creek. Even in Deep Creek North, Deep Creek South has the same kind of feel, even on George Washington Highway. You'll see what I'm talking about. Houses on the main road, but it's just kind of blah, right? That's how I see it. Now, you might say, okay, well, I can get a cheaper house in Deep Creek and go over to the rest of Chesapeake. Be careful, not so fast. It can be annoying. You see this bridge right here, Moses Grandy Trail? This bridge is super irritating. Now, they're under construction now, so I'll give them some slack, but this bridge, this area, if you veer off of the bridge, this traffic right here, this is normal traffic when you see it turned off, but like rush hour, this is probably rush hour. It backs up, turning onto the bridge or getting across the bridge can be, look at that. That's a good example right there. It backs up. And so you might think, well, I can go across from one side to the other. Even living over in Grassfield and spend $600 for a house, go over towards you can get to interstate right here. It takes me 6 minutes. It might take you 6 minutes, but it might take you 17, that kind of a thing. So this area here can really congest, bottleneck, and it gets frustrating. And so especially if you live in the south part of Deep Creek, getting in and out, you don't have many options. You've got to go across or near this bridge. It can be very frustrating. So keep that in mind. Even if you live in Grassfield, even if you live in Hickory, this is a pretty important bridge because it can be so frustrating and you don't pay attention to it when you're doing a Google search or a Google Maps search as to how far it takes you to get to places, because it doesn't factor in how annoying it can be randomly during the day or even during rush hour. So as you go around the Deep Creek South and the Deep Creek North area, you cross over 64 near Deep Creek High School, and you're up into still the same kind of area that feels like you might find over into the South Norfolk area or in the Central Chesapeake area. Same kind of feel over in Deep Creek, same kind of thing. Deep Creek High School District, you'll see a lot of this type of, just older strip malls off and then neighborhoods off of the main roads built in the 60s, 70s. And some of them are nice little nooks. You can find some nice nooks in here for $425, $375. But for the most part, you're not going to be seeing too many areas near here that are over 5 and 6. Some new construction, individual spots, but not too much. Now, going further north, and you're talking about Portsmouth. So we're not talking about that right now, but we're going to go further west. Further go away from west, this is Deep Creek West. This whole hill area here is Bowers Hill. this is just one big neighborhood, but it has well and septic. It's just kind of a rural individual neighborhood. You see these like big lots, some random small houses. You get to get some bigger houses in here too, just a kind of a mishmash, but you do live on well and septic. And this area is what you see Deep Creek West as. If you see someone saying they live near in Bowers Hill, this is what they're talking about. There's Bowers Hill right here. There's the name. So that's not a whole lot going on there. Now over in Deep Creek, there's a barbecue place called the Barbecue Shack, which is right here, which I've not been to, but I have heard is very good. It's right, again, this is a classic example of how Deep Creek works. So this is Old George Washington Highway. This is the Barbecue Shack right here, but it's like a road that pops off of the main road right here, which is George Washington Highway. It's just kind of a weird nook back there. It's just kind of there's no real rhyme or reason to how some of Deep Creek is organized. But as you go across 58, which connects you to Suffolk, if you go further north in 664, this connects you to the rest of Chesapeake, which is Western Branch, which I'm going to show you that all this area here, this area is Western Branch. Now, Western Branch connects to Portsmouth on this side. It connects to Suffolk on this side in Portsmouth, and it connects to Suffolk on this side. But around here, this is all Chesapeake. Now, this is the Western Branch School District, and you'll find that Western Branch has a lot of vibes similar to South Chesapeake, the suburbs area of South Chesapeake. Areas that feel like they were originally rural that are now, like, they've grown. So you find like houses built in the 60s, houses built in the 50s. And like, for example, off of Dock Landing Road, Taylor Road, let's just use Tire Neck Road as a good example. I'm going to drop a pin here. So you'll find these older brick style houses along the main road. Then you'll have newer houses built off, like the Point Elizabeth. It's a great neighborhood built in the 4s and 5s, up in the 6s and higher on the water. But great example of a neighborhood I'm talking about that is off of the main road that you'll find this is a very kind of a Greenbrier-ish kind of feel, bigger lots, or even like Greenbrier, but like South Chesapeake feel. So you can get, if you want the feel of South Chesapeake down near Hickory and Great Bridge, Grassfield, but you don't want to pay as much, you can find some options in Western Branch if you want to pay $600 for a house in Hickory, you might pay $525 for the same house in Western Branch. Jolliffe Woods, a Myers Farm is a good example. Some like newer ones in this part of town. Myers Farm is real nice. So you got Western Branch South and Western Branch North. They feel close enough to the same to where you're not going to be drastically affected by how different they are, but there's a little bit of a difference. You'll find some newer neighborhoods off of Dock Landing and also off of Taylor Road. Western Branch North and South, you get newer houses. You can get them like in the more contemporary style than you might find in other parts of Chesapeake or even Virginia Beach. I do like that a lot, but you may be paying maybe like $550 or $600 for a house that in Chesapeake and Hickory might be $650. You'll save some money, but again, it's like, is it worth the extra drive? For us, we didn't want to go that far. The drive is just, you kind of feel like you're living in that part of town. You've chosen your tribe, you've chosen your area, and that just to us wasn't worth it. That's why we wanted to move closer to the rest of town as opposed to that side of Chesapeake. So newer areas, Western Branch kind of got built up in the same kind of time period as Greenbrier did, maybe a little bit, about the same time. And so I call it Greenbrier Light. It is definitely not as prominent, as big as you'd find in the Greenbrier area. Not as much nearly going on, but the same kind of thing. Big box stores, you got the Chick-fil-A for sure. You got Chesapeake Square Mall, which is back there too, which again, just like Greenbrier Mall is now a shell of itself. So this is kind of the central part of the kind of the hub of where you go shopping if you live in Western Branch, which it is enough here to, if you want to, live life in Western Branch or in Suffolk or near Portsmouth, this is enough for you to, survive on, if you will, and not have to feel like you're going away from the rest of Hampton Roads into Virginia Beach or Norfolk or Chesapeake, the rest of Chesapeake. But it's not enough for everybody. And so I do think that one of the drawbacks to Western Branch is there's not as much of anything. If you don't want to, be too far away from Virginia Beach, it's a hike. It's like 40 plus minutes to get from the Western Branch area over to Virginia Beach. So it's only for certain people and certain types of lifestyles. And now granted, the school district can be in enough demand to possibly make it worth it. But again, keep in mind that in general, You'll be getting a little bit more house for the price, but you'll be paying for it in other ways, like longer drive to things, not as much going on. It's not as sparse as what you might find in Suffolk, but it definitely is not as prominent. So if you do want to leave Virginia Western Branch to go to the rest of Virginia Beach or Hampton Roads at all, you're going to be wanting to use 64 as your primary road to get to the rest of town. Now, shopping areas, and I'm a big fan of grocery store feel, and like if I'm going to be living somewhere, I want to know where I'm going to be shopping regularly. As you go further south, you'll find that there are some Food Line is like the common thread of a lot of parts of Chesapeake. You'll see some old Food Lines, some newer Food Lines. So there's a decent amount of those, but as you go into the south part, like so for example, Harris Teeter they've become more popular. There are a couple of those, like the south part near Etheridge Manor. There's one over like right down near the bypass right there. And there's another one, of course, in Greenbrier as well. Kroger, Harris Teeter are the two, I'd say, kind of the modest upper level grocery stores, aside from like the random Food Lines that you'll find in south part of Chesapeake and even the central part of Chesapeake. But as you go into the Deep Creek, South Norfolk, or the central Chesapeake area, you'll find more Food Lines and kind of those mom and pop grocery stores, as opposed to the Krogers or the Harris Teeters. If you do live in Chesapeake, if you want to go to Whole Foods, if you want to go to Wegmans, those are going to be in Virginia Beach. They're not going to be in Chesapeake. You know, those more upper scale, like even Hilltop, where you have a lot of the upscale shopping, you don't see a lot of that in Chesapeake. You'll find some nice shopping, especially in Greenbrier, but not just as much as you'd find in Virginia Beach. Of course, if you love Costco like I do, you want to know where Costco is, and Costco is going into Norfolk. That's the closest one, right close to Virginia Beach, the Virginia Beach and Norfolk line, right here. So zoom in right here. It's close to Interstate 64, so you can just take 64 and head all the way down into whatever part of Chesapeake you're going to, or 264 for that matter. But it's very close to the interstate, so you can hop on and off pretty quickly. But man, there's so much else to talk about in Chesapeake. I love talking about Chesapeake, if you haven't been able to tell already. So if you have any other questions about relocating to Chesapeake, anywhere through the city or Virginia Beach, through Williamsburg, the whole area, I love helping people relocate to the area. So if you have any questions, I have my contact information in the description. You can email me, call me, text me, and I will do whatever I can to help you relocate to the area. And I will see you on the next video.